Welcome to Football 101. Dave Wyman here, and we're going to look at a play from the San Francisco 49er game last weekend. And if you remember, we talked about Bobby Wagner the first time around with the 49ers because he picked off a pass where I thought he sort of baited Brian Hoyer into making a throw by just taking a little step and then jumping it, if you remember that. And in this game, he had another spectacular interception. As a matter of fact, it's something that I don't think I've seen. I mean, I've seen guys take the ball away, but the way that he did it was remarkable, and that's why we're going to talk about getting Bobby Wagner the defensive MVP. I really think he's one of those guys. He's only missed like 6 or 7 games in 6 years. He's always around the ball. He's always making interceptions and, you know, fumble recoveries and big hits on the quarterback. He got a safety this year. So Bobby Wagner for MVP, and this is a great reason why he should be voted in because of the play that he makes. Seahawks start off with cover 3, and what we're going to talk about too is why they're so good at cover 3. And this is a great example of it because here's what you got in cover 3. You got your corner. I think this was Maxwell. He bailed out and he has the deep third. Your free safety, Earl, he has the middle third, and then the other corner has the other outside third. So that's why they call it cover 3, of course. So what that means is if you have 4 rushers, which they do, and the Seahawks are able to do this a lot, it allows them to do that. And that means that you only have 4 underneath droppers. Well, here's what you see with San Francisco at 14:03 in the second quarter. They motioned Carlos Hyde out, so they're releasing 5, including the tight end, 5 guys into the pattern, but you only have 4 underneath droppers. So what teams like to do in that situation is kind of pick you apart. And this wide receiver comes here and tries to get, what they try to do, their rule is in zone, is to settle down in between the zone defenders. And so this guy tried to settle down in between Bobby and Justin Coleman. And the thing is, Bobby sat there and read the quarterback's eyes really well. And it's difficult to do because, you know, if it's just from me to you right now, it's pretty easy to see. But as it projects out 20, 25 yards down the field, you know, somebody looking this way, he could be throwing here or here, and it ends up being, you know, 10 yards. So, but Bobby reads it really well, and he jumps this route really well and gets there. The way, I can't even describe how he got this interception. He kind of pulled it out with one hand, grabbed it, and twisted around. It was a spectacular play, and then he had the wherewithal to get upfield. So that's one of the reasons why the Seahawks are so good at cover 3, because of players like Bobby Wagner. And the thing about it is it doesn't get you beat deep very often. And that's the thing with the Seahawks. They usually don't get beat deep. But there's another thing, and this is the other thing about Bobby. I always say this, there's 3 parts of every play. There's getting aligned properly, there's fulfilling your assignment, and then there's just being a football player and making a play. And that was a great example of how he pulled that interception out of him just being a football player. And he does things that not everybody can do. But there's another thing that he did early on that we're going to take a look at that he does much better now, and it used to be a little bit of a problem for him. I've talked a lot about run gap integrity and making sure that you fulfill your responsibility in run gaps in the running game. Bobby Wagner early on, because he's so fast and so speedy, he used to do what I call running under a block. And what that means is that if you have a running play, this is very simple sort of diagnosis here, but just to put it in simple terms, running underneath a block. So let's say Bobby Wagner has this B gap right here. That's his responsibility, and this guy is coming to block him. Typically what you do is you take on the block and try to go over the top so that you keep your outside arm and leg free, because this is your lane here, and the only way to get there is by you know, keeping that outside leverage on the guard. But here's what Bobby will do every once in a while. And he wasn't so good at it early on in his career. Now he's great at it. Every once in a while you have the freedom to run underneath a block. And so what that would be in this situation, same thing. He has this gap and he runs underneath. So it's kind of it's a hard thing to do, but if you can do it and get it done, you're giving up your gap on the front side. If you don't get there, then you know, there's going to be problem in films, because that's your gap, your responsibility there. But Bobby, sometimes because of his speed, will go underneath the blocker and make a play. And it catches sometimes blockers by surprise, but actually that's the route that he used to take, used to come underneath and then go more upfield. But one of the things that you see Bobby do now is when he does come underneath a block, he gets right down the line. And that's just, it's a little thing, but it's really important that he takes better angles. And that's what you see in players now. Bobby still has his speed in his 6th year, but when you get older, as you age in the NFL, you got to start taking much better angles, and Bobby is already doing that at a very relatively young age in the NFL. So little things like this are the things I think that not everybody sees, but you do see him making tackles, and it's not always the most sound way to do it, but he has the freedom to do that because he's so fast and such a great tackler. But that's the reason why, along with all the plays that he makes on the ball, like the interception we talked about, that's why I think Bobby Wagner this year should be your defensive MVP in the NFL.